Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. Later in the show, we will explore why Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar was back in town this week. And here's a hint. She was once again handing out oversized ceremonial checks with her name on them for a project she voted against in Washington. So that's something worth discussing. And then we will preview the Miami mayor's race that has 13 candidates running. But first, I want to focus on education for a few minutes. Now, a few months ago, I heard Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, say something during a press conference that has really stuck in my head. Let me play it for you.
This administration is also fighting to get critical race theory out of our school districts. Children will be taught to love America. Children will be taught to be patriots. Children will be taught civic values for schools that want federal taxpayer funding. So as we close the Department of Education and we provide funding to states, we are going to make sure that these funds are not being used to promote communist ideology. For any nation to be successful, it cannot teach its children to hate themselves and to hate their country.
Children will be taught to love America. Children will be taught to be patriots. In some ways, you hear what he is saying and think, yeah, I guess there's nothing really wrong with that. But I always thought the role of education was to teach children how to think critically, how to learn, how to ask questions, how to absorb knowledge and acquire the skills that make you a productive member of society. School is a place where you learn social skills and how to interact with others. And yes, children should be taught civic values, including the things that make America great, like our Constitution, including freedom of speech and thought. But we can't whitewash history either. So when you demand that the primary goal of education is to teach students to love America, that sounds more like indoctrination than education. And when you say you want to raise them to be patriots, my question becomes, who defines what a patriot is? It's a fascinating question, and this isn't a new fight. In recent years, we have seen the battle over education shift to school boards across the country because it's the school boards that are designed to be the community's last line of defense in support of education. There are more than 13,000 school boards in the United States with some 95,000 school board members. So deciding who gets elected to those boards has taken on a new sense of urgency. And in many ways, Florida has been the epicenter of that war. The conservative group Moms for Liberty sprang out of Florida to become a national force, helping elect conservative school board members that we have seen dictate policies around the country on book bans and other culture war policies. In response, a new group was formed last year to try and counter that influence. Educated We Stand says its mission is to safeguard the integrity of public education and limit the influence of what it describes as far-right extremists. This week, they announced that Miami's own Karla Hernandez-Mats was taking over as the new president of the organization. Now, Karla is no stranger to this show. Born and raised in Miami, she spent more than a decade teaching and was Miami-Dade Teacher of the Year at Hialeah Middle School in 2010. Until a few months ago, she was the head of the state's largest teachers union, the United Teachers of Dade, and she was also Charlie Crist's running mate when he ran for governor last year. Now, Karla, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the basic question of why did you want this position? Why does this interest you of running this group, fairly new group, Educated We Stand?
Look, I think being a teacher, seeing what's happening not just in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, but across the nation, and having children in our public schools really brings a sense of seeing the full picture. I want to make sure that every child has access to a high-quality public education, and what we're seeing from far-right extremist movements is that they are really trying to obliterate what public education is. We're seeing that at the national level, they're trying to dismantle the Department of Education, and we are the stopgap. We want to make sure that our children, regardless of race, regardless of zip code, or nationality, that they have access to the resources that they need. And that happens by making sure that we have safe, inclusive, and just common sense, practical policies that ensure kids have that access.
And again, the point I was trying to make is so much of that comes down to school boards. Yes, legislatures, governors, departments of education, they can play that role, but to so much, it's really supposed to be at the community level that is electing these school board members. And we saw in the aftermath of COVID how groups like Moms for Liberty came in and really sort of mobilized to try to get certain conservative members elected to school boards and really politicize school boards in a way we haven't seen before. Talk to me about what this group is hoping to achieve in sort of countering that effect.
Well, first of all, I think that it's important to distinguish that it's more than a conservative group, this Moms for Liberty group. It is a far-right extremist group. It's been categorized as such even by the Southern Poverty Law Center. It is a group that bans books, that censors teachers, that doesn't want American history to be taught in the way that it is and wants to whitewash it. And so we're seeing a concerted effort to attack our teachers, to attack public education and our institutions that help our kids thrive and really are the cornerstone to democracy and give access to success and opportunities to our kids. And so, what we're seeing is that because of this movement, because of the things that they have tried to implement, and in many places been successful, somebody had to counter that. And so we're a nonpartisan national organization. And I want to make sure that that is emphasized, that we're nonpartisan because we care about common sense, evidence-based, practical policies that ensure our kids are getting the resources that they need and that our parents and teachers and the community feel that they are being supported in these efforts. What we're seeing right now is, something that is really disheartening because our teachers are being attacked almost on a daily basis from groups that are funded, such as this one, funded by far-right extremist groups, and they're dismantling access to kids.
So one of the things that I think happened, and I think it's been a pivotal moment over the last, I want to say, 5 years. I think a lot of this, I think Moms for Liberty came out of COVID. I think the lockdowns that so many schools and parents dealt with, I think opened the door for a group like this to come in and sort of say, we don't trust what's going on in our schools right now. We need to get the schools open. Talk to me about how you look back at that period of time with COVID, with schools being locked down, and how that has been used to some extent and exploited by Moms for Liberty and others to sort of make that case that we can't trust school boards, we can't trust teachers, we can't trust the system itself as it currently is instructed.
I think that a lot of the propaganda that they have perpetuated and been tried to influence people about is precisely that. Florida and Governor DeSantis likes to tout that we never closed our schools, even though he did. We know that as educators, what we were promoting and have always advocated for is safe learning environments, ensuring that kids had not only the resources, but also that they were safe in an environment that none of us were prepared to really undertake. And so we did see an opening. We saw a lot of dog whistles. We saw a lot of racism. We saw school boards, not just in Miami-Dade and in Florida, but across many districts, become chaotic. I mean, even school board members have taken the approach and have been very vocal that when Moms for Liberty people are present at school board meetings, that what they bring is chaos. What they bring is dysfunction. And so we want to make sure that our school boards are not that they are learning places, institutions where kids have access, and that's what we want to make sure that we're ensuring.
The problem, of course, is that school board races don't often get a lot of attention. Yeah. They're pretty low on the ballot. You don't really know and have that interaction with your school board member on a regular basis or hear from them in the news like you might otherwise. So how do you educate the public about these races? Because so much of what you're trying to do is finding candidates, promoting candidates, getting candidates elected, but that also means trying to gather the attention and get the public to care enough to vote in these school board races. How challenging is that?
So I think you're right. I think that a lot of people do not pay attention to local politics. Everybody thinks about the president and, of course, big presidential races, and we don't focus enough on what's happening at the local level. And we know that in spite of the rhetoric out there that the dismantling of the Department of Education is going to create bring back more power to our local school boards, it's always existed. School boards have always had the power to approve curriculum, adopt policies, and make sure that their district is meeting the needs of their communities. And so because it's been neglected and because it's been overlooked for so long, we've seen that this has created a vulnerability that now we're being impacted by, because we're seeing that we're losing resources. We're seeing that teachers are leaving the career. I mean, high quality educators that have spent years in the classroom are burnt out. They hate the politics of this, and what we're seeing is a really focused, a narrow-minded approach of being very politically oriented. And we believe that educators should have teacher autonomy. There should be authenticity in teaching. We should create critical thinkers, and that's going to be implemented by practical policies, which is why we need to focus on these school board races and why Educated We Stand exists, and why we're promoting to make sure that we have access to quality candidates.
Your predecessor in this role, Jennifer Jenkins, in part helped found this organization because of what she saw. She was a Brevard County member of the school board. She ran and beat a Moms for Liberty school board member, one of the founders of Moms for Liberty, and I talked to her a couple weeks ago, and she was talking to me about the price that she paid for that, and the threats against her, the fact that some people reported that she was a bad mother to DCF and had her investigated for that. She had people protesting at her house. Does that give you pause at all? I know that you've been in the spotlight, in the limelight for a long time, both as UTD president and then as the lieutenant governor candidate for Charlie Crist. There was a part of me that wondered if you were just going to try to stay quiet after your tumultuous tenure. But any pause about coming back in such a heated area?
Look, we're seeing a lot of violence in general and a lot of retaliation, and that is something that's very concerning and should be concerning to everyone. That's not civil discourse. That's not how we should behave in a democracy. But I will tell you this, that group is losing steam. We've seen so many of their school board races being flipped. Educated We Stand has almost an 80% win rate across the nation. We're flipping seats. We're getting candidates. We're supporting, common sense.
Why do you think that has lost steam? Why do you think Moms for Liberty, and I do think they reached their apex in 2022, maybe a little bit in 2024, but where do you see that sort of coming down now?
I think because they blew their cover. People realized that they didn't stand for what their name says, that they're actually banning books, censoring, whitewashing history, really impacting curriculum and access to students. And so people have, become aware of what they really stand for, that they are a right-wing extremist group, and they're fighting back, and they are actually really getting involved and seeing what the needs are for their communities, and they're supporting those needs and their children by supporting candidates that do care about public education.
Are you finding people willing to step up and run for these school board seats?
I'm finding in general that people are, especially people that have children or that have been part of the public education system, are certainly very interested.
But it's got to be harder to find people willing to go and be part of this, given the climate that we're in now.
And that's what I was going to say. I think that because of the climate, because we're not seeing enough school board members that actually are strong in their opinions or have the courage to stand up for what is right and to stand up against state policies that are contradictory to what a public education system should be providing. I think that that's actually what's creating the angst. I think that there's a lot of people that would like to be public servants and that want to really, commit their time and their effort to making our communities better. But because everything is so polarized, it's really making it difficult for people to say, yeah, count me in. I want to put my name out there, or put a bullseye on myself to be part of this moment that we're in. But we need to, and that's why I'm okay stepping in and stepping up, because I love public education. I've dedicated my entire career. My kids are in our public public schools, and I want every child to have access to a high-quality public education.
I need to do better about covering school board races as well, and this is a good reminder that those school board races are critical. Karla, thank you very much for coming in. All right, now, when we come back, we will talk about what Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar was up to this week. Stay with us. Welcome back. In January 2024, I had Republican Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar on this show to talk about a number of topics, including her support for Donald Trump, the economy, and her desire for immigration reform. But there was one moment from that interview that went viral, and that's when I asked her why she was handing out ceremonial checks like this one with her name on them, taking credit for funding projects that she actually voted against. Take a look at how she addressed it.
Last month, you were at FIU and you presented a check for $650,000 to help small businesses at FIU. But you voted against the bill that gave the money that you then signed a check for and handed and had a photo op, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023, right? You voted against that bill.
Right now, you have to give me more details, but I do know that every time I have an opportunity to bring money to my constituents, I do so. I just did $400,000. But look,
but you voted against the Chips and Science Act, right?
Listen, right now I need to ask my staff. But what do we look at the $40 million that I have brought to this community? Aren't you proud of me? Aren't you proud of the $40 million that I brought? Aren't you proud that I wrote the Dignity Act? Haven't I? Let's talk about the Americas Act.
Wait a second. Let me 1 second.
Tell me.
The money that you talk about, the $40 million that you bring back to the district, sometimes that money comes from bills that you voted against. You voted against the CHIPS Act, and yet you praise the fact that the South Florida Climate Resilience Tech Hub is going to be started in Miami, right? You voted against the infrastructure bill, and you talk about all the money that comes back to the airport. So at the same time that you're taking credit for the money that you bring back to the district, in Washington, you're voting against these projects on party line votes.
Listen, that was, I think, last cycle. I cannot really remember right now, but let's look at the Americas Act, which is what I'm going to, which is what I would like.
You don't want to explain why you voted against things.
I mean, right now, and I'm not trying to be a politician, there's so many bills that I've introduced that I know that many of them
these are bills that you voted against.
That I understand. But it's okay. Sometimes I vote and sometimes I don't. But
I vote and sometimes I don't. Now, you would imagine after that episode, she would be hesitant to do something like that again. But here she was this week in Cutler Bay, handing out another big check with her name on it. This one for $4.4 million for the Marlin Roadway Expansion Project, funding that was part of Joe Biden's infrastructure bills that she voted against. Now, I asked Salazar's office to comment on why she was taking credit for something she voted against in Washington, but I haven't heard back from them. One person who did have something to say was Robin Peguero, one of the Democrats hoping to run against her next year. He decided to hold his own press conference with his own big check, and he certainly didn't hold back when criticizing Salazar.
But the Congresswoman, she is taking credit. She has voted no against it twice. This is phony. This is her being a liar because she's an ineffective and weak representative. We need somebody in there who's going to say what they mean, who's going to do what they say, right? She has before done this. This is unfortunately a pattern for her where she votes against projects and then comes and presents the money as if she had anything to do with it instead of actively voting against it and trying to defeat it.
Now, one thing is certain, printing oversized checks is one industry that is doing really well in Miami. When we come back, I'll be joined by my colleague, Eliott Rodriguez, who will be moderating a forum for some of the candidates running to be the next mayor of Miami. Stay with us. Welcome back. There are 13 candidates running for mayor of Miami. They include 2 former mayors, Joe Carollo and Xavier Suarez, 2 former city commissioners, Ken Russell and Alex Diaz-de-Portilla, a county commissioner, Eileen Higgins, and a former city manager, Emilio Gonzalez. And that's not even half of them. Next week, CBS News Miami will be streaming a forum with the leading candidates, and it will be moderated by my friend and colleague, Eliott Rodriguez. And Eliott joins me now to talk about the race. Eliott, thank you for coming in. I know that in preparation for this, you've been going out and talking to people and sort of getting a sense for how the public is viewing this mayor's race. What are you hearing?
Well, first of all, nice to be here, Jim. And last week, they got me out of the studio. I was out and about in different neighborhoods in the city of Miami, just gauging sentiment about what are the issues that voters are talking about. And I can tell you resoundingly, no matter what neighborhood I went to, the #1 issue is housing affordability. It's especially true in Overtown, where I spent quite a bit of time, and I heard stories about people who are working full-time jobs. They come home, it's not really home, they're sleeping in a truck or in a car. People are being relocated because of gentrification, specifically in Overtown, but not just there, even in downtown Miami, Brickell, Little Havana, people were talking about the housing affordability issue.
That gets tricky because I'm not 100% sure how much a mayor or even a city commission can do about that. And so that's where it gets sort of challenging. They can work on it to some extent, but City of Miami, let's face it, it's only like a $400 or $500 million operating budget that includes police, fire, all those sorts of services. So it doesn't have a lot of capital to begin with. Even the county is struggling to deal with the affordability issue. So that'll be fascinating to sort of see when you question them about what their plans are, how they leverage that. I'm surprised that one of the things that you didn't hear as #1 is bringing down the chaos in the city of Miami, because there's so much chaos.
That was right out there. As a matter of fact, when I went out in the community, I had some YouTube videos of some of the scenes that we've seen at Miami City Hall where the commissioners are going at one another. And I showed it. I showed it to different people, and they said, that's exactly what we don't want. We want somebody to rein this in. And you and I both know in the city of Miami, they don't have a strong mayor form of government, but the mayor is supposed to preside over the commission meetings. However, Mayor Francis Suarez has handed over that responsibility to Christine King, who is the president, who is the chairwoman of the city commission.
Yeah, and well, it depends on if Francis is in the country. He spends a lot of time in Saudi Arabia. Now, I know that there's a lot of polling, and when you have so many candidates, polling is difficult. Some of the polling that I've seen would suggest that County Commissioner Eileen Higgins is probably leading among all the candidates, probably has good name ID, represents that district for the county commission already, the city of Miami, or that part. And so I think she's around, I've seen polls that have her around in the low 30s. Emilio Gonzalez, not far behind him, but then everyone's just sort of grouped together. Carollo, Diaz-Apertia. It seems to me like we're going to have this election in November, but it's going to come down to a runoff. Nobody's getting to 50% with 13 candidates in there. And I know from Eileen Higgins' camp that it really depends on who they want to run against. I think they would love to run against the folks who have more scandals, like the Joe Carollos or the Alex Diaz-Apertias, than Emilio Gonzalez, who has just been endorsed by Governor Ron DeSantis and has sort of the Republican machine behind him.
Absolutely. He's very much into the Trump MAGA world, so that would be an interesting an interesting showdown right there. But a lot of people would ask Eileen Higgins, you were just reelected to the county commission a year ago. What are you saying to the people who you represented in that district, your constituents? And also, do you feel that there should be a special election to fill the void that you're leaving on the commission after only 1 year?
If only there was a forum where a question like that could be asked.
That's on the list.
All right. Yeah, no. And so I know it's going to be, I know these things are hard when you have so many, but the real thing is going to become the runoff in December. What were you going to say? Last word?
I just have to make one quick point here. 13 candidates qualified for this, and when I was approached by the Downtown Neighbors Alliance to do this, and I said, there's no way that you can do a debate with 13 people. So they commissioned the poll, and that's how they came up with the 6 names who have been invited.
All right, I think it's the 6 that I said. Okay, now join Eliott this coming Tuesday, September 30th at 7 p.m., presented by the Downtown Neighbors Alliance. The only place you can watch it on the CBS News Miami stream. Find it on CBS News app, Pluto TV, and on CBSMiami.com. Well, that's all the time we have today. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to contact me at jdefede@cbs.com. I do enjoy hearing from you. Thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.